On Saints Happy Hour, Mom and Dad are fighting, Kevin. The Saints in the state of Louisiana are fighting over the lease. We're going to break it all down for you. Calm you down. Calm your nerves. It'll be fine. Thomas, hit that intro.
Welcome to the award-winning Saints Happy Hour podcast. Seriously, this podcast has won awards. American standards are dropping every day. The show features Ralph, the best host in the world, who can barely pronounce his own name, much less anyone else's.
Marcus Marquez Calloway.
Dave is that dude who loves taking bathroom breaks. He's mad about almost anything, so make sure to lower your volume when he speaks.
Put that freaking clown meme back up that I made. Jesus Christ.
Andrew has sources, watches tapes, and knows football. He rarely shows up on time and wants to commit crimes to help the Saints win.
Sean Payton would have done illegal things. Don't tell me I'm wrong, because you know it's true.
Oh, and there's also Kevin, who is great at doing mock drafts, but struggles to actually watch Saints games or have a functioning relationship.
Budrich wants to know how the doctor's doing.
That ended.
Anyway, grab a drink, sit back, and enjoy the insanity.
All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Saints Happy Hour podcast. If you're finding us on the YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you're listening to the audio-only version, subscribe to us wherever you found our podcast. And go to saintshappyhour.com to check out all the benefits of becoming a patron. I got Kevin with me. I got Thomas running the show back in Poland. All right. Today, we're going to just start to discuss a not necessarily fun topic in that the Saints and the state of Louisiana, the Saints lease ends in about 4.5 years. I think it ends in 2030. So the state and the Saints are starting to do their dance of extending the lease. They're doing about $450 million of renovations to the Superdome. And Kevin, we kicked off this fight because this has always been a fight in 2009, back in the early 2000s with Mike Foster. They've always fought with the state about the lease and all that and payments. And it can get potentially, it didn't get nasty in 2009, but when Mike Foster, one of the previous, it got really nasty. Like Benson was like showing drawings of a new stadium, threatening opening talks with other cities and yada, yada, yada. So it'll probably get contentious maybe, but it got contentious this week where the state, and Thomas has these two statements, the Saints were like, hey, we didn't make this $11 million payment for these renovations that we're supposed to, and we would have made the payment, and we're happy to make the payment. In fact, we'd pay the whole thing off right now, but the state needs to get us some documents. And they didn't get us the documents, and we're not doing the payment until they give us the document. But we love the state, and we want to get this done. But state, get your act together and give us the payment, right? So go ahead, Kevin.
Well, so it's a $500 million renovation that's been going on since 2020, if I'm looking at that. Oh, yeah. And the Superdome is 49 years old.
That's right.
It got the first... it got the obvious renovation in 05, 06, and then another one happened. Oh, God. I'm trying to remember when because there have been a couple. Okay, there was a touch-up, a $40 million touch-up in 2016, but the lease that was signed was in 2010.
Yes, right.
And it was a 20-year lease.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the Saints are going to be in here through 2030, but they're talking about, the Saints are talking about, oh, we've got this 11.5 that the LSED, which is the Louisiana Stadium and Exposition District, which is what runs or manages
the Superdome, the convention center.
Right. But they're asking for documentation, but they never specified what the documentation was, which should be one of the first questions that anybody who sees all this and reads all this should ask themselves. Well, what documentation are you talking about? And the state, or excuse me, the LSED says, well, if you have that documentation, like if you tell us what that is, we'll get it to you. Like there's a lot of people trying to argue in bad faith with one another. over. It's 11.5 right now, and the Saints are going to owe $48 million more, I think.
Yeah.
Of what's left to upgrade. We're talking about. It's not pennies. I'm not.
It's not pennies, but it's
wouldn't
like,
be the
come
right
on.
thing. But if you've got $100 in your pocket, you're worrying about $5.
Yeah,
Maybe $5 or less of that.
this is.
But you're worried
Yeah.
about $5 out of 100.
This is not.
Maybe.
This is like the opening shot in, like, I wouldn't call it a war, negotiation, contentious. It's going to be a contentious negotiation. Here's the thing.
Public negotiations like this are annoying.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing that I think, and most, I see a lot of fans, and I saw a lot of smart people on Twitter, reporters, like, what are the Saints doing? Gail is worth billions. Why is she not paying? This is a terrible look. And she says she cares about the New Orleans, blah, blah, blah. Why is she doing this? And this is my first thing is, just because Gail dresses nice and talks like your mama, okay? Like a mama from New Orleans, and we like her and we love her. And I think Gail is as good an owner as the Saints can have. Like, I really believe that. But don't confuse the fact that Gail is a really good owner compared to other owners and compared to the possibilities of owners the Saints can have. Don't compare that to the fact she's still an owner. She's still a billionaire. Billionaires mostly all act the same regarding their money. And never forget this about Gail. She elbowed out the entire Benson family.
Right.
And she got it all. She got the Saints. She got the Pelicans. None of Benson's kids did. So don't take her nice grandmotherly, aw shucks, I'm just happy to help, I'm saving the Crescent City Classic. That's all good and that's all fine. And she's going to donate the money when she does. She's going to donate all the revenue from the Saints to a trust or whatever. That's all great. But don't confuse that with her being a stone cold killer and caring about her billions and wanting to set the Saints up for success financially with this. And that's my thing with people. Don't confuse the two.
She is worth, she has a net worth, according to Forbes, of $6.1 billion. That makes her the 495th richest person on the planet.
And that's
and she's only one of 2 billionaires
in Louisiana.
The other one is the guy who founded Raising Cane.
That's right. And here's the thing. I think that undershoots her worth, because I think that $6 billion number, I think if she sold the Saints, I think she'd get that for the Saints.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't even include the Pelicans. So I think that undershoots the worth. My thing with this negotiation that the state and the Saints are going to have, and the reason why I wanted to have this podcast is I believe this. I don't live in Louisiana anymore like you, but I go there and visit a lot. My family's there. I believe to say Louisiana is dysfunctional is not something new. Like, dysfunctional, corrupt, we understand that. My biggest fear with this Saints negotiation is we have politicians in power now, and politicians for most of the part, they don't look far enough ahead, and they think, how do I use this negotiation to benefit me right now?
Right.
With a re-election or popularity. And the thing popular now may be the governor, he made his bones crapping on New Orleans. Like, let's be real. Like, that's what he's done. Like, that's how he's made his bones.
Right.
And
I am refraining from adding on to that, elaborating my thought or voicing my thoughts on that further. But yes, there are politicians who get off or curry favor with their supporters by dogging the big city or the big metropolitan area. And hey, flip that Flip that coin around. I wish I had a big $50 around. Flip that coin the other way. You got people who will. You got some politicians who will talk about the yokels in the middle of states, or
and it's always like
in the middle of the country.
Louisiana politics has always been that way since Huey Long, right? It's everybody else, and then New Orleans, and they butt heads, and that's basically Louisiana politics in a nutshell.
And the problem is nobody wants to sit back and say, hey, wait a minute, the big cities are where all the people are.
That's right.
And we need that, and the hillbillies and the whatever in whatever part of the state it is. In Illinois, it's basically everywhere outside of Chicago. But you need those people working farms, working factories, doing this and that.
Yeah.
Like you need all that for exports and this and monitoring one thing or another. And I think we lost Ralph there. I look weird on the camera here, like I'm the like I'm that MF Doom music video where he talks about the Icelandic volcano. People need to realize you need both. You do, and again, I'm saying it, and it should be simple. But the fact that I'm saying it, and that I have to point out the obvious, is silly.
Yeah, and here's
so you pull that back. So pull that back to the Saints. Reel me back in, Ralph.
Well, here's my concern with this, with this negotiation, and I think it's going to get done because at the end of the day, I don't think Gail Benson is going to allow her obituary to say Gail Benson, comma, the lady who sold the Saints to Portland, comma, died today at the age of whatever. That's not going to happen. Like she cares too much about her legacy to allow that to happen. And I believe that with the Pelicans too. Like she doesn't, because let's be real, Kevin, if the Pelicans or the Saints get sold to somewhere else on Gail Benson's watch, that's the first line of her obituary, period, end.
Right.
And I don't believe that's going to happen. I don't believe she's going to let that happen. But here's my concern, that the state looks at it that way, and they're like, Gail Benson will never move the team, so we'll just hold her over a barrel, and we'll get it. I'll get a good deal, and I'll be the politician that said I stuck it to New Orleans, and I got us a great deal with the Saints, and we don't give them as much, and they'll win the day now, and they'll feel good about it, and blah blah blah. But my concern is the people in the state of Louisiana do not understand the opportunity or almost obligation that and chance they have with Gail Benson as the Saints owner. Because I'm going to tell you people something that a lot of people seem to Twitter don't understand. They're like, well, if she doesn't want to do it, she could sell the team, blah, blah, blah. I'm here to tell you, whatever you think about Gail Benson, the next owner of the Saints is probably not going to be, almost assuredly will not be from Louisiana. So they will
Unless
not have.
You want that Raising Cane's guy to buy the team, which, hey, look, he's got the money to feasibly do it, or the
now
the
he does
to do it.
Will he have it in 10 years? You know? So my point is, the state, I worry they don't understand getting a deal with Gail Benson and locking it down for 30, 40, 50 years.
30 minimum. 30 is the bare minimum. 30, I would be shooting for 40 to 50.
I would be. If the state should be, not give the Saints everything they want.
Correct.
But I would, if I was the state, I would think, I'll give the Saints most of what you want. And we've renovated the dome. And by the way, this dome renovation is not some small renovation. It's $450 million. And if you've been to the dome, it's getting near completion. It's a completely different facility. Like, it's modern.
I haven't been to the dome in, I couldn't tell you how many years. I'd like to see what it looks like. I really would.
It's transformative. The concourses are wider. It really does feel like a modern NFL stadium now. It's completely different. It's nice. And it's a great thing. But my thing for the state is, if they, with this deal with Gail Benson, if they do not lock the Saints in for, like you say, a minimum of 30 years where there's no escape, like if I
Yeah,
would,
put some giant penalty on there.
yeah,
Whatever deal
like
you
say,
get
like
some
say,
giant penalty.
giant penalty, like say to the Saints, hey, you get all the revenue from the dome. You get this amazing freaking deal. And we'll even, the states, let's be real, they subsidize the Saints and the Pelicans to a certain extent. And listen, New Orleans probably isn't big enough to have 2 pro teams, and the state subsidizes, but we can argue whether it's good or bad. But the thing is, if you don't do it, you aren't going to improve anything in the state. You're just not going to have the Saints and the Pelicans. But my point is, the state should look at this and say, hey, we'll give you a fantastic deal, maybe even above and beyond what we should. But let me tell you, Saints, Gail, you're locked in for 30 years. Like, the penalty for the Saints leaving, make it some astronomical number, make it 25, 30 billion. Because the next owner for the Saints, if Gail, let's be positive, and let's say she's very healthy, apparently. Let's say she's 75. Let's say she lives 20 more years. So that puts her at 95 years old. In 20 years, if the NFL...
He's 77.
She's 77. Let's say she lives to 95. So 18 more years. If she lives to be 18 more years, the NFL, on the current trajectory it is on, even if it has a couple of bumps in the road, not pandemic type bumps, but just bumps of recessions and things, I could feasibly make the case, Kevin, the Saints will sell for 12 to 15 billion dollars.
Yeah, the Saints are currently worth, and again, this is according to Forbes, the Saints are currently worth, I just had the number, 4.08 billion. So you want to just round it up to 4.1? Okay, fine. They're worth $4.1 billion.
And
yeah.
And here's the thing. When's the last time a football team sold and they sold under the evaluation of Forbes? I can't remember it. I can't remember one. Because here's the thing. Sports teams, when you and I were growing up, the ultra wealthy weren't really interested in them, right? You could have a guy like a Tom Benson who was fabulously wealthy in the 80s, fabulously wealthy, but not a billionaire, not even close, right? He was a car dealer. He was worth $150 million, which in the 80s was an incredible amount of money. But billionaires and these celebrity, super rich people, they weren't interested in sports teams. But now, all these super rich people, they figured out, Kevin, in the last 15 years, I think, that if you're a super wealthy person, no one gives a damn about you. Really. They're like, oh, you're Kevin Held? What do you do? Well, I'm a billionaire and I make the computer processor that runs all the steel factories in the world. And people are like, fine, whatever, dude. Like, I don't care. But if you say, I'm Kevin Held, I'm a billionaire, I own the Pelicans,
and I have cable.
People go, oh, you own a sports team? That's awesome.
Right.
Let me talk to you. Let me have you on, and it gives them cachet, and it's exploded the value of sports teams, not just because of TV revenue, because super rich people want to own them as a status.
Right. So let me get in on here. So in 2014, this is according to Forbes, in 2014, the Saints were worth $1.1 billion. As of 2023, they're worth $4.1 billion. That is an increase, if I'm using this thing right, that is an increase of 272.7%
in 10 years.
A 10-year period.
So in 10 years, they'll be worth, if I do the math right, in 10 years, they'll be worth 12. In 18 years, they might be worth 17 billion. So that stands my point, Kevin. To me, it is absolutely critical that the state lock them in because here's the thing. The next person that owns the Saints
I don't want to speak total into absolutes, but very, very likely will not be local.
That's right. That's right. And
Do you trust a non-local not to move the team?
That's right.
Also, do you trust a non-local wealthy person not... Can I cuss or no?
You can cuss.
Do you trust a non-local wealthy person not to fuck over middle class and poor people?
That's right. That's right.
Do you trust a non-local tech bro to do the right thing and to do something that is going to work? Have you seen what tech people do?
That's right.
They take an asset and they screw it up.
Yeah.
They
Not to
make
mention
it
private
work.
equity people.
And God forbid if it's private equity.
Yeah.
This thing, they'll buy it, screw it up, and sell it for parts.
That's right. And I just want to say this. There is nothing worse as a sports fan, and I can speak from experience. I root for the Everton Football Club in the English Premier League. There is nothing worse as a sports fan than you suddenly have to worry about non-sports things. Like this is annoying. Like the lease is annoying.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, like with Everton, they're going bankrupt. I have to worry about creditors. What creditors have to be paid? What creditors don't have to be paid? Will they do this? Will they have to sell the stadium? Will they have to sell the ground? Like it is annoying and it makes sports less fun. But I'm going to tell you, like tech bro, private equity, like you don't.
I'll give you another scenario. I'll give you another crazy scenario. This one's crazier than those two. Also a nightmare scenario, and it ties into your example with soccer. I used to be a Newcastle United fan.
Mm-hmm.
The owner was notoriously cheap. Hung out in the stands, would get drunk all the time. You know, he was a hoot and a holler, but he didn't spend enough money. He sold the team, the club, whatever. He sold the team to the Saudi Sports Management Group. So, sold it to an international, not even an international, sold it to a country's sports management group. And it's like, I don't want a foreign
entity. Yeah,
foreign,
you don't want.
I don't want a country, essentially, owning the sports club that has shady dealings. Like,
That's right.
Like, you've seen how I get when the Saints sign one person.
That's right.
That has bad things attached to it.
Much less. You've seen how I get,
and you've seen how we get discussing these things. You've seen how Saints Twitter gets discussing certain things. Imagine that scenario where you've got a government and a nation that, again, I'm trying to reining myself in, that has bad practices.
That's
I'll
right.
put it gently. Bad practice.
And you just, like, to me, the Saints, we've been very fortunate in a sense of you had Tom Benson, who, listen, he had some struggles and like, Tagliabue put him in his place in 2005 and was like, bro, you're not moving the team to San Antonio. It's like, get that out of your mind. The NFL, we're not taking that PR hit for you post-Katrina for you to move the team. So just get it out of your mind. Get right with the state of Louisiana because it didn't happen. So, like, that's part of Tom Benson's legacy. But also, like, he kept the team in Louisiana when there was no one else to step forward. But the thing is with people that need to understand is that are against the state sort
and
of
he
deal.
died with people liking him.
He died. That's amazing.
He died with people liking him.
That's right.
That is the only currency. That is the only currency that the rest of the general public has on the wealthy.
That's right.
That is it.
That's it.
That is it. Because for all their wealth, all these nerds and tech bro people and the ultra wealthy,
that's right,
they still care to some degree about being liked.
That's right.
Now, granted, some of them can insulate themselves, like, you know, like some of the old the old wealthy, like the Koch brothers or some other,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I just hang out in my tiny circle and I'm happy with that, and they can be fine with it. To which case, whatever. But the younger ones, the guys that are in their 40s and younger, they still want to be liked and thought of as like, captains of industry and all this other kind of stuff. And if you point at them and say you're a fucking clown, they do get hurt by that.
That's right. That's right.
So
and that's the thing.
That's the only thing.
That's the only thing we've got over them.
We have.
That's the only thing we've got over them. And I just would implore the state, because I worry that the current group of politicians, they're not thinking far enough ahead. Like we're having this discussion now. They're just thinking, I can do X and it'll help me with this election coming up with my constituents or whatever. And there needs to be a sense of urgency to get this done with Gail. And I almost wish, like, I do believe like Gail's got this. We always joke about the circle of trust with Loomis and Lauscha and that sort of thing. I do believe she's set it up. She's tried to set it up as best she can to make sure that when the Saints are sold, they will be in New Orleans long term. But short of her being like, I'm making the Saints like the Packers, and it's a publicly owned thing and they'll never leave, like, which you can't do anymore. Short of that,
you can't.
You can't. I don't know. I don't think the NFL.
I tell you what, I would love to have like a sports lawyer or somebody like answer that definitively. Boy, that'd be a good guest for the future.
That would be. Like, is
Whatever,
that because
sorry.
Because I'll tell you, as an aside, I don't think that's possible. But if Gail did that and was like, when I die, the Saints are just going to be publicly owned. Like, I'm not. The thing is with NFL team, I think the pushback from other NFL teams is they want these teams sold, because every time, and we mentioned it before, every time a team's sold, the value just goes up. And if you had this just become publicly owned,
right?
And also too, you'd have other cities being like, we want that too. We want that too. But you know what? The Bundesliga in Germany have to be 51% publicly owned. So the fans always, and it keeps the Bundesliga in this weird realm where they aren't as big and powerful as other sort of European leagues, but it's awesome, and the fans get a better. But I mean,
well,
I guess
who would have thought the Germans, Tomas, cover your ears. The Germans would have figured out how to handle some public ownership of things. Public ownership.
The Germans. Who knew?
Weird.
When they're not too busy making the rest of Europe hate them and making poop jokes.
Yeah,
they do good things.
They're all right.
But I guess the interesting thing to me is, this is, I think Fletcher Mackel said this, and Nick Underhill, other people have said, look, this is a long runway. That 5 years is a decent amount away, which it is. But I guess to me, besides this little hiccup of pay us the $11 million, we don't want to pay you. You didn't give us the documentation. Well, tell us what documents you want. Like, it's a little weird and a little annoying. Yeah. I guess to me, like, I'm trying to think of like what other things along the negotiation do you look as a red flag? Because I believe that the thing that makes these negotiations unique is Gail's not. She's 77. She's not packing up the Saints and going to Portland and going to San. And by the way, the climate for cities like stealing franchises is kind of like really cooled. As cities
after the Vegas thing, absolutely.
Yeah, like there's not many cities left that are like, yeah, we want a team. We'll bend heaven and earth. So it's not an environment for that, but that could change, right? But I guess for me, it's difficult because if Gail was, instead of 77, if she was 45 or 40, you'd be like, hell, she could pack up the Saints, move somewhere, and build a legacy for the next 20, 30, 40 years as, oh, I'm Gail Benson, and I brought a football team to Portland, and they'll love me. They'll build me a statue in Portland, and blah, blah, blah. She's too old for that now. Yeah. So my question to you is, as we go along in this negotiation, what sort of signs should we look for where we're like, oh no, this is bad? Like, that's the thing that I'm trying to figure out in this. Like, what?
I think the only thing that I'm trying to how to I've got an analogy that I picked up in therapy over the years.
Okay.
I have this habit of overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you've noticed it.
Yes, that's right.
I also have a habit of looking too far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a therapist once tell me that it's like I'm in the jungle on a beach jungle, and I can see the lighthouse in the distance. So I know where I'm going. I know where the lighthouse is. And I'm looking at the lighthouse going towards it. But I'm not looking at what's right in front of me. And I miss the fact that I'm walking right towards a tiger pit or some other like obstacle or something that I'm going to, or I'm going to step on a snake in the dark and not notice it and get bit by some boom slang or whatever the hell and be, shitting blood out my pants. That's what happens when a boom
slang. That sounds like an awesome,
that's an Australian snake. I learned that,
somebody should send me that whiskey, boom slang whiskey. I'll drink it.
Point is, don't look too far ahead with the negotiations to like the 2030 thing and like, oh,
that's what I'm saying.
No. Here's the thing to stay focused on. The Super Bowl is in January.
That's right.
In the Dome, or in February in the Dome.
That's right.
There are still there's still work being done.
That's right.
On the Dome right now.
Mm-hmm.
If work stops, that's a problem.
That's bad.
Because the people that are currently footing the bill for it are saying we can't be doing that, even though they're a big global ass company and they could easily afford to do it. It's rich people and wealthy companies don't like spending money if they don't have to.
That's right.
It's that Simpsons bit where Bill Gates goes and buys out Homer's internet company, and it turns out it's just a bunch of nerds who like break up all of his stuff. And Bill Gates jokes, I didn't get rich cutting checks. Like, these companies don't get rich and stay rich by constantly paying for stuff.
That's right.
So as long as there's not a work stoppage because somebody wants to stop paying for something, we'll be okay.
That's right.
I think I could see this thing going until this. I could see the sort of tit for tat BS going over the summer.
Yeah.
Once the season like gets close to starting, I could see things getting sort of like resolved-ish to where it's less of a concern and things will be fine by the Super Bowl and yada yada yada. I'm focused on between now and
that's right. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm asking you. Like, what are things that we should be looking for? Like if it gets to we ain't doing no more work. We're not finished this work until we get paid. That's a problem. But otherwise, don't really worry about it. The final thing I'll say, you mentioned that rich people don't like to pay money. I'll mention this thing, and it surprised me when I learned about it like 5 or 6 years ago, but it shouldn't have. One of the biggest like tax cheats in the state of New York are the super wealthy. Yeah. When they buy artwork, they don't pay the taxes on the artwork. And normal people be like, you're worth $2.5 billion. Why would you just bought this painting for $45 million? Why wouldn't you just pay the $4.5 million of taxes on it? Whatever. Because they think they can get away with it. Because they don't want to spend. They don't want to pay $4.5 million in taxes. Like, like that's just how they are. Like that's like billionaires, they hold their money. But I will say this, Kevin. The Saints, this is the first time in a long time, really, because I don't know when you consider like the internet age and the social media age, but it's not that old. Like I know we've had the internet for 20, 25 years or whatever, but like the social media 24-hour news cycle on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, like that's only probably less than 15 years old. So this is the first.
You mean
what's that?
what do you mean?
Like where we're all on like social media, just like discusses everything all the time.
So let's see. I'm trying to figure out internet. 90 foot, maybe like somewhere in the early mid 90s.
That's right.
Because like I
AOL
was in
dial
those
up
like
with the disc in.
it's like alt dot, or it was like something dot subject dot alt or alt dot whatever groups where it's like you could be you wanted to talk about Pearl Jam, you could talk about Pearl Jam in this group or whatever the subject was.
Thomas, did they have dial up in Poland?
Yeah.
Did they have AOL?
That I don't know. But
Oh, you
dial-up,
don't
yeah.
know. That.
But
all right.
But and then you'd start to get AOL was, I guess, a social
Kind of, yeah.
is kind of a social media thing where you could like chat or whatever. But yeah, and like the social media, it's like you had like Friendster.
Yeah.
And like couple other things before MySpace got started.
But I'm talking about like the age we live in now.
The age we live in now?
It's like a decade, like 2009, 2010.
Let me see if I can figure out, because I'm on
like
the history of the internet here trying to look up.
Twitter was like 08, 09, I think. YouTube. Like, I'm just like, the thing is where we discuss everything, and you can get a podcast to discuss everything. The thing that happened 40 minutes ago, breaking news for the Saints, we have a podcast 45 minutes later. You can discuss it for 2 days on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, on Discord. You should get in our Discord, Saints. It's amazing.
Okay, so MySpace was launched in 2003. By 2006, it was the most visited website on the planet. 2008, it was eclipsed by Facebook. So you could say maybe like by mid 2000s you had.
So that's like 2008. 2000. Let's say 2010.
20 years. I'd feel comfortable saying 15 to 20 years, closer to 20.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is this is the first time we're gonna have a Saints state of Louisiana negotiation where you're gonna have dueling statements released within like an hour on social media, where before it was, the Saints and the state are negotiating. I'll read about it in the paper tomorrow. I'll see a 2-minute piece on it on the news, on the 10 o'clock news, right?
Right.
Now it's going to be, it's going to be minute by minute, hour by hour negotiations.
Right.
It's going to be
into the ground.
Beaten into the ground. So it's going to be a different experience for everybody.
Yeah.
And I just worry. My biggest fear is that Louisiana doesn't have capable leadership in place to get this done in a way that benefits the state long term and the Saints long term, because our leadership isn't good enough. I guess that's my biggest fear.
Yeah. I'll co-sign on that, because it keeps me from donning my special proletariat hat and possibly recommending people read the works of Central European philosophers from the late 18th or early 19th century on some things.
My thing to both the Saints and to the state is, could you keep the tit for tat to a minimum, please? I don't get this, like you said, please get this route. Please get this either resolved
right
or away from the public by July. I don't want, Kevin, I don't want in the middle of October, whether the Saints are having a great season, whether they're having a poor season, whether they're the same mediocrity they were last year. What I don't want to do is I don't want to have to play the breaking news siren, and me and you are doing a podcast and Thomas is recording behind the dumpster, and me and you are breaking down dueling statements from the LSED and the Saints. I don't freaking want that during the football season. It's okay in May and June and even July. But once the season, something to talk about. But in the season, please, Saints and the Louisiana politicians, please don't have me and Kevin doing breaking freaking news podcasts on dueling statements during the football season. Kevin, I'll be freaking irate behind the dumpster.
I will listen.
The dumpster will explode.
It will.
I will go buy a copy of Das Kapital, and I will start reading passages from that shit.
That's right.
Irony of ironies. I'll go purchase a copy, but I'll go buy a copy of it and read passages of it on.
I think we'll buy Das Kapital. We'll buy it. It'll be in Poland. It'll be in Polish, and we'll
have Tomas read it.
And we'll have Tomas read it in Polish, and that'll be the punishment. And we'll tweet it at the Saints. We'll Facebook. We'll tag them and the LSED, and we'll tag them, and we'll just keep. And if they block us, we'll just keep. I'll have Thomas just make burner accounts, and we'll just keep. It'll be just Thomas reading by candlelight Das Kapital in Poland until they stop screwing around during the football season and ruining Saints football for us by talking about leases and agreements and checks not being paid for construction work. So, guys, listen, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Me and Kevin try to have a little fun. It'll be okay. Don't worry about it until it gets real contentious. Until then, we're gonna get ready for football season. We got your bracket. We're gonna have it soon. We got fun prizes to give away and fun stuff for the football season. You should become a patron. Go to saintshappyhour.com. It's amazing. So thanks for joining us. Thanks to Kevin. Thanks to Thomas running the show back in Poland. I'm Ralph. Until next time, the bar is closed.